Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Hope y'all have had a great Wednesday so far. Hope you're having a great evening. In tonight's video, we're really going to break down the tropics and what's going on. There's been some major shifts in the model runs over the last 24 hours. I'm going to break it all down in this video as these shifts may be impactful for the eastern U.S. getting into the late weekend and into early next week, even as early as this weekend as far as waves and things like that and swells along the eastern U.S. So we're going to break down and talk about Tropical Storm Henri. That is going to be the bigger topic in this video. Probably, I would say 75% of this video we're going to be discussing Henri, as it looks like it's going to be an impactful threat for the U.S. And then you have Hurricane Grace, which is out here just spinning around. It is a hurricane now, an 80-mile-per-hour storm. She is going to hit the Yucatan Peninsula over the next 12 to 36 hours. But check out Henri out here spinning just south of west of Bermuda. And this is really what we're going to discuss in this video, but I'm going to provide updates on both of these. So if you guys have not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I make video content every single day, sometimes twice a day. And y'all want to stay up to date, as it looks like we have another potentially a threatening scenario from a tropical cyclone here in the next several days. So definitely subscribe. I'm just a very passionate weather person who loves, who's just blessed enough to have an audience to talk about what I love, which is the weather. And y'all give that to me. So much love to everybody. Thank y'all for the amazing support. And like the video if you like it. So let's get going here. So right now, this is what we got. We got Henri right here. Henri's doing good. Henri's not really strengthening much because it's dealing with a little bit of northerly shear. The flow on top of the storm is kind of hunkering down on the storm right here. I keep using my hands like that you're going to see the hand on the screen or something. But here you go. This is Bermuda right here, just northeast of the storm. But it's starting to try to work its way up to an inner core, which will help this storm get a little bit stronger. Let me tell you, there is a crazy steering current we have to talk about in this video. There's a lot that plays into this, and a lot plays into the short range of this storm, meaning whatever happens in the short term here in the next 1 to 3 days is pivotal on what Henri does long term. So we're going to break down why here in a second, but look at the visible satellite view of Henri, and he looks like a really good looking storm right now, blowing up in convection right in the middle of the storm. And Recon actually is going out into the storm, basically the hurricane hunters, tomorrow morning. So we'll learn a lot more about the circulation and how healthy and basically the millibar low of the storm actually and truly really is. So just a good looking storm right here. Some good fanning out. These outflows are moving in, but this is a really good looking storm right here. But it's not rapidly intensifying right now due to the northerly flow on top of the storm providing some shear from the north. And that is going to prevent any kind of intense strengthening in the near term. But eventually it's going to move into a better environment. So the latest update here, and this is from the 5 p.m. update. By the time some of you watch this, it might be a later update. But right now they're saying they're guesstimating it's a 995 millibar storm, which is down from a 998 earlier today, and it's moving west at about 9 miles per hour. It's going to keep moving west, especially the stronger the storm. The more west and even maybe west-southwest it's going to move. The longer it moves west, the higher chance, obviously. And I'll tell you, there's a little bit more in depth with it and just moving obviously west towards the coast. But the longer it moves west or either southwest, the higher chances it could affect New England here in the coming days. But you look at the latest cone. They have knocked the long-range part of the cone more into the U.S. So parts of New England are in the cone of uncertainty now as we get to this. Looks like a Sunday into Monday, maybe Tuesday event. The time frame is going to bounce back and forth. But you know, areas in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, even parts of New York City, Long Island, you guys are in the cone of uncertainty now. It's forecast this thing to be a hurricane or 2 p.m. Sunday off the coast of New England. So the cone of uncertainty is wide up here. So they're leaving open, kind of an open range for this to wiggle around, just like any cone of uncertainty is. But right now it's a 70-mile-per-hour storm. If it strengthens another 5-mile-per-hour storm, it'll be Hurricane Henri. So it's not going to take much to make this a hurricane. It's not much more strengthening. but it's not forecast to strengthen much over the next 12 to 24, maybe 36 hours. But I really think this could be a hurricane by the time we get into about Friday afternoon. You quickly talk about Grace, and stick with me in this video, guys. We're really going to talk about the factors. We're going to take a look at the models here on what's going on here in the steering currents. Grace is forecasted is a hurricane, and it will hit the Yucatan Peninsula, weaken, turn to a tropical storm, then re-strengthen into a hurricane, and then hit Mexico. We're not going to talk much about this storm, but this is a very impactful storm. I don't think it's going to reach major status, but I think it will eventually get up to a Category 2 in some time in its lifespan. So here we go. Let's look at the GFS from 12Z. So we're run it through. We'll back it up a little bit. This is for Thursday morning. It has this thing at a 990 millibar low storm. I'm not sure if it's going to be that low, but it might be. Hurricane hunters are going to roll out into the storm around 18Z Thursday, which is around late morning tomorrow. So we'll find out a lot about this storm. It's forecast to be a little bit unfavorable conditions here in the next day or so because it's going to be dealing with some shear. Eventually, it's going to get into some favorable conditions right when it gets about as close as it will be to the Carolinas around Friday evening. I will tell you, if you're going to the beach in the Carolinas or even in the East Coast in general, but especially the Carolinas, if you're going to the beach this weekend, you're going to have some massive waves. Just be careful. The rip currents are going to be wild. And honestly, if you got little kids or anything, or anybody who's basically younger kids and things like that, watch them in the waters because the waves are going to be ripping from Henri just off the coast here. So moving forward, we get into this weekend, we get into Saturday morning. This is the 12Z showing it strengthened. This is getting into a Category 2 status hurricane at this point. It's strengthening, it's moving up, still strengthening. It might be pushing major status just off this GFS run. And look at it. It's heading right. It's actually getting pulled back northwest into the New England area. And I'm going to tell you why it's doing this. I'm going to break down all this here in a second. It's getting pulled in to the northeast, and then it makes landfall and really slows down, which I think will allow it to weaken if this scenario was to happen. Gets into some cooler waters, and the waters aren't that cool up there. They're actually pretty warm, a little bit warmer than normal this time of year. But around Monday morning, it shows it making landfall around Long Island as a hurricane. So very interesting scenario. I will mention all the past hurricanes, the major hurricanes, or just hurricanes in general, which isn't a whole ton here in the history that we know and the records that we have of hurricanes that hit the New England. A lot of times these are quick movers. They roll through very fast. Well, in this scenario, it doesn't show it being very quick. So we look at the latest GFS. The latest GFS is a little bit different. It actually ticked a little bit further east. And you know why? The reason is because it initializes the storm weaker, which means that it's not going to track west longer in the short term, which means it's probably going to be a little bit further east long term, which means that maybe it wouldn't be as impactful for the New England. But at this time, we're looking at just run-to-run variables. It's not super important to focus on each run. We're just kind of looking at things and trying to iron out what's going on. You moving forward here, it shows that the storm actually weakening between now and tomorrow morning and into tomorrow, and staying around a tropical storm status. It begins to strengthen as it gets into some favorable conditions right here, because it starts to basically get into an area where it's not being influenced by any big-time shear. So it's able to strengthen here. It begins to turn north again, just like the last GFS. It's probably a minimum hurricane at this point. Strengthens well off the coast of the Carolinas and Virginia and in the mid-Atlantic, and deepens here. And it's probably a Category 1, Category 2 hurricane. And then it looks like it nips western areas of Massachusetts and Nantucket and Cape Cod and things like that. This would be a big storm for them. But you notice, you look at the run prior to that we just showed, look how further west it is. Look at the latest run, it's further east. These run-to-run variables are going to happen. They're going to go back and forth. Now let's talk about, now let's look at the GFS ensembles, the latest ones, the ones that GFS that just came out. Check it out. There's a big spread. It's not that big, but it's a decent spread. But there is a lot of hurricanes that move this into New England, into Massachusetts, into Rhode Island and Connecticut. That's still a strong signal. But you notice, one thing I want to notice here is all the ones that run it into New England are the stronger ones, or the 982s, the 981 millibar storms. All the ones that are out here are you're seeing a lot of weaker ones, like 990s into 1,000 millibar storms, which are weaker storms. That higher that number, the higher pressure, the weaker the storm is. So you can see that going on here. There's still a lot of members, even though the latest GFS ticked further east. There's still a lot of members that are ramming into the New England. You look at the latest Euro. The Euro, guys, is initializing this storm way too weak. So it's hard to really respect the Euro right now. The Euro takes this, strengthens it somewhat, but keeps it basically as a tropical storm, and then just pretty much destroys the storm, and really a non-factor. It tries to pull it in around Monday as just a tropical disturbance, but the Euro's not showing much at all. Now, what's steering this storm? Now, this is important to check out here. What's going on here is this is initializing overnight. You have a ridge of high pressure right here that builds in. This is ultimately the ridge of high pressure that is pushing Hurricane Grace into Mexico. So you're moving forward here. The ridge of high pressure weakens, and there becomes a favorable period when it's not dealing with any more shear that it can strengthen right here. This is when it has the chance to strengthen as it begins to turn north. As that ridge of high pressure weakens, the storm begins to turn north because it can. It's also starting to get influenced by a trough that's digging down from the northwest over the eastern U.S. That trough will interact with Henri and actually try to pull it in. That's kind of what happened with Hurricane Sandy in 2012. It tries to pull this in. It makes it go from it looks like it's starting to go northeast, but it interacts with this trough, and it begins to almost start to go back to just turning north, which if it turns north at this point, which would be around Saturday into Sunday, then there's still land north of it, which is New England, which is, places like Massachusetts and things like that. It starts to move north. Another thing we have to watch is this ridge of high pressure over eastern Canada. You look at this run, and this is the 12Z GFS. It's a little bit more of an influencing factor as it's sliding southeast a little bit quicker. You look at this run, and there's still an influence there, but not quite as much. This ridge of high pressure is going to slow Henri down, which is kind of even more. A hurricane for New England is rare on its own, but a slow-moving one is even rarer. It actually slows it down and bogs it down because the ridge of high pressure is on top of this storm. Eventually, it just kind of gets lost in the mix and kind of dwindles away. But it's very, very interesting checking it out. You look at steering currents, you'll see exactly what I mean. You're watching here. Here's the storm. Here's Henri popping up right here. The ridge of high pressure is steering this almost southwest a little bit. The stronger the storm, and you notice this anticyclone right here kind of spinning away, it weakens. There's no more shear to deal with. There's just a little bit, and it has a chance to strengthen right here. And then it gets caught up in this upper trough, this upper level low, and notice the little arrows pointing this way. That is when it gets caught up in these steering currents, and the flow comes out of this direction from the south, which steers it north and allows us to start moving northeast. And then it tries to get pulled in by this short wave trough right here. And you notice the arrows pointing north, and so it's trying to flow out the south here. I'm trying not to get my directionals mixed up, and which pulls into Cape Cod. So it's a very interesting scenario what we have going on here. And you look at the shear in the short term. This is kind of limiting this storm from strengthening. This is Henri right here, and the shear slapping it from around the northeast right here in the northern areas of the storm. That is making the storm being a little bit more tilted right now. So it's not necessarily vertically stacked, so it can't rapidly intensify, which means it can't really get an intact chord to it. So it'll be dealing with shear until it gets in this area right here. The shear lessens and it's able to strengthen. So we'll continue to watch this. This is the wind gust forecast off the latest GFS, and you notice the wind field to this thing. It'll be interesting to see if this interacts with a trough and the wind field expands, kind of like Sandy, which is kind of a scary scenario. But you start to get into Sunday evening and check out the winds whipping off Cape Cod, just off this GFS run. Very interesting times ahead, guys, for sure, as Henri wasn't even a factor a week ago. And I guess just how it goes. Very active times ahead. I hope you guys in New England are paying attention to this. This could catch a lot of people off by surprise to some degree. So that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. Y'all have a blessed evening, and I'll got y'all an update tomorrow. So have a good night, guys.